Who dat? Who dat coming to Chappy's Tiki Bar? This is the Nawlins episode where I pay tribute to the city of New Orleans. We make Cajun chicken wings, shrimp po' boy, we're going to do a shrimp boil, hurricane, green hand grenade, and best tropical destination story. Coming right up on Chappy's Tiki Bar. Laissez bon temps rouler, or as they say in New Orleans, let the good times roll. This is the Nawlins episode. With me as always is Mookie. We're going to start out with best tropical destination stories, and she's going here to summon the tiki drums. And of course I have a best tropical destination story from New Orleans. So send your best tropical destination stories to chappiness@yahoo.com. And Mookie's going to do her job and go summon the tiki drums. Thank you, Mookie. So again, this is my New Orleans best tropical destination story. So my brother and I went on a football trip to the Crescent City. I guess it all started in the airport, the George Bush Airport in Houston, Texas. We had a 3-hour layover. My brother had access to an executive lounge, so the beverages there were free. So we had free beverages and 3 hours to kill. So we had several beers waiting for the connector, and then we got into New Orleans and decided to go for dinner and go back to the room early. Well, that didn't exactly materialize. We went to a seafood restaurant called Deanie's Seafood right on Bourbon Street. There's the address there. So it was really crowded, and we were just waiting for a table, but there were 2 seats at the bar. So we bellied up to the bar. So we started off with a couple of hurricanes, and then we worked our way up to a house specialty called the Voodoo. Now I was watching the bartender make the Voodoo, and he ran out of Voodoo mix, and instead of going to get more Voodoo mix, he just lazily topped our drinks off with more hurricane mix. Now at this point I was feeling no pain, so I actually called him out on it. Now he had already served us the Voodoos when I was giving him the what for, and he just calmly said, "Okay, drink your drink, I'll mix you boys a new one." And he proceeded to mix us a new Voodoo. Now this time there seemed to be a lot of free pouring of vodka, so he put the Voodoo mix in, and then it just kind of went glug, 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 glug with the vodka. So we got our Voodoo. So we had dinner, but it was a little fuzzy. And then after dinner, we somehow did not go back to the room early. We ended up doing a bit of bar hopping down Bourbon Street, through the French Quarter, and down Decatur Street. We must have hit at least 10 bars. One of which was an Irish pub by the same name as my brother, Ryan. I remember this because he ended up with a t-shirt that said Ryan's Drinking Team. This is actually a funny part of the story. I don't think he remembered much of that. So then we finally ended up at a bar called Tropical Isles. Here's the address. This place is famous for its green hand grenades. So we each got one of these yard-long green hand grenades. So it was a long, thin yard container. And the bottom had a plastic green hand grenade at the base of the yard drink. So we were walking back to the hotel room with these yard drinks in our hand. So we basically took the beverages to go, and then we ended up back at the hotel. Now this was a really nice place. We were greeted by the doorman, and then we were walking through the lobby to get to our room, and the concierge said hello. At that point, I turned around to comment to my brother, like, what a nice place it was. But when I turned around, my brother wasn't there. I'm like, what the heck? And then I looked down. He had taken a face plant when he hit the lip of the rug. Now, if you've ever been to New Orleans, you know how humid it is there. So for the rest of the trip, he had this big red rug burn on his forehead. And for the entire remainder of the trip, it was just weeping this clear liquid, never really healing because of the humidity. And I'm sure like every time he would start to sweat, it would just sting like crazy. Now, I'm not too sure how much he remembered of his fall, but when he fell, he had about a liter of this green hand grenade spill on the front of his shorts. And of course, I made the comment, did you have a nice trip? So anyways, he woke up the next morning very hungover with this gaping wound on his forehead, wearing this t-shirt that said Ryan's Drinking Team, which he had no recollection of purchasing. And he wasn't wearing any shorts or underwear. They were clumped up in a ball, still sopping wet from the night before. He was pretty confident that it was from the drink he spilled on his shorts and he didn't actually wet the bed. So that is my best tropical destination story from Nawlins. If you have any tropical destination stories, again, please send them to me. You can send them to chappiness@yahoo.com and I'll read them on my show. So coming up next, we got a new segment. It's called Appies with Chappy by the Lake. So stay tuned for that.
Appies with Chappy by the lake.
Alright, so these are my Cajun dry rub chicken wings. I'm going to add a little Tony Sachets. That's my T-FAL hot air fryer that I did the wings in. And then next I'm going to put in some blackening seasoning. That's a real Cajun thing. And then last but not least, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of garlic salt. Now I find if you put the dry rub on at the end when it's cooked, the seasoning sort of adheres to the wing a little better. So that's my Cajun chicken wings. So coming up next, I'm going to do a green hand grenade in honor of my brother skinning his forehead. So green hand grenades were again at that tropical isle in New Orleans. They actually had several of those tropical isles that they had the green hand grenades. So it's a very, very strong drink, as you might have guessed. So that's just some white rum and some gin. And then some vodka. It's actually 4 kinds of booze here. And then last but not least, I have a green melon liqueur. That makes it green. And then I just finish it off with a bit of pineapple juice. And that will knock you on your ass. Or in my brother's case, on his front. So I'm just putting it into the martini shaker to get all shaken up. And then I garnished it with a lime, just because the lime's green. So next I'm going to make a hurricane from Pat O'Brien's. For that I had homemade grenadine, so I'll show you really quick how I made the homemade grenadine. Alright, so I'm going to make homemade grenadine syrup for my New Orleans hurricane. So I have some Rogers sugar, most likely made in Tabor, Alberta. So we'll go 2 cups of sugar. And then we're going to want equal portions pomegranate juice to sugar. So 2 cups of pomegranate juice. And the final ingredient, I have orange blossom water. So just a splash of that. And we're going to heat it up into a syrup, and that'll be my homemade grenadine. So I made my grenadine from scratch for my New Orleans Pat O'Brien's Hurricane. First of all, I'm going to show you what not to do. So I have the syrup here. You're supposed to bring it to a rolling boil for about 5 minutes and then take it off the heat. I had it on a full-on boil and I kind of forgot about it, and then when it cooled, it basically turned to hard candy. So this is it here, and as you can see, it's rock solid. So this is not the outcome I was looking for my grenadine syrup. So I did take number 2, and I think it turned out pretty good. I'm just gonna funnel it into a bottle. And there you have it, my grenadine syrup from scratch. Coming up next, I'm going to make a hurricane from Pat O'Brien's in New Orleans. Alright, so here's my Pat O'Brien's New Orleans hurricane. I'm going to start off with some Sailor Jerry's rum. And then I have some white rum. And that's a splash of lime, some pineapple juice, a little bit of Grand Marnier. You can use triple sec or any orange liqueur will do. And then I have some passion fruit juice, some guava nectar, some OJ, and last but not least, my homemade grenadine syrup that I made from scratch. And then I'm gonna give it a little shake. And then I have a nice orange wheel and a big garnish. Got a strawberry, pineapple, maraschino cherry. And that's my Pat O'Brien's New Orleans Hurricane. So that's my Appies with Chappy. I got my Cajun chicken wings, a green hand grenade, and a Pat O'Brien's Hurricane. I'll put the recipe for the drinks up on the screen. Okay, so that's Appies with Chappy by the lake. Here's my chicken wings. Give them a little try. That's fantastic. So if you ever want to come out to the lake and give us a visit, there's the address. Now you might look at this and say, oh, it's great, you're having appetizers and drinks by the lake. Well, it hasn't always been this easy being a man of leisure. Um, my father worked his whole life, and his father worked his whole life, so it's a lot of work being a man of leisure. Love you, Dad. So this is for my dad. Oh, he's not dead. He's just on the roof doing a little work. What? He's only about 70, so he'll probably be fine. Besides, he needs me down here to spot on the beach in case he falls. All right, so we're gonna make New Orleans classic shrimp po' boys. I got some really nice baguettes. I'm gonna toast them off in the oven. And I got some wild Argentinian shrimp. I'm going to make my own remoulade sauce. Now, as far as the shrimp's concerned, I think I'm going to go with a beer batter. The key to a good beer batter is really cold beer batter. So I got some beer right out of the freezer, and we're going to go ahead and start those shrimp po' boys. So I'm just cutting up a pickle for my remoulade sauce. The remoulade sauce, I believe, is the French influence in Cajun and Creole cuisine in New Orleans. Here's a fun fact. So the colors of Mardi Gras, which are purple, green, and gold, all represent something. The green represents faith, purple represents justice, and gold represents power. So these are actually homemade pickles from my dad's, the cucumbers from my dad's garden. And I'm going to add a little bit of mayonnaise. Most remoulades are mayonnaise based or aioli based, and then normally you'd add Creole mustard. This is Nathan's brown hot dog mustard, which is quite similar to the Creole mustard. I find the Creole mustard is pretty grainy, but if I could have got my hands on some, that would have been nice. And then I'm going to add a little bit Tony Chachere's. That's a classic Creole seasoning. And give it a little stir, and that's going to be my remoulade sauce for my shrimp po' boy. Also, I'm going to toast off some baguettes so they're nice and crisp on the outside. Now, again, these are just regular French baguettes, but New Orleans, the bread is just unbelievable. There's no way I could find classic New Orleans bread. I think it's something about the humidity there. So now I'm just going to do up the beer batter for my shrimp. I got a little magic baking powder. And then, of course, some flour. That's just regular all-purpose flour. And I don't really have any measurements. I just want a really loose batter. And then my ice-cold beer, I put it in the freezer for about 30 minutes just to get it super cold, but of course not frozen. I'm going to give it a stir first. And then after I put the shrimp in the batter, I'm going to do the panko breadcrumbs, and there's my Tony sachets. It's going to go in the breadcrumbs and in the batter. And there's my beautiful Argentinian shrimp. And you're going to roll it around in those Japanese breadcrumbs. And then just going to cut up some nice ripe tomatoes for my sandwich. And it's always important to give the tomatoes a good hit of salt. And then also I never put tomatoes in the fridge. And in goes my battered and breaded shrimp into hot oil. You want the oil to be around 350 to 375. And then that's my baguette that I had in the oven. So it's nice and crispy on the outside. I'm just going to pull out a little bit of the bread just to give it some more room so I can put all those lovely ingredients in there. So out goes the bread. And I'm going to give it a good smattering of my remoulade sauce. And then I have some nice baby gem lettuce. And then my ripe tomatoes that I seasoned. And then I'm just going to cram as much shrimp in there as humanly possible. So I got it nice and golden brown and crispy. I let it sit on a paper towel to get the excess oil off, and then I gave it another hit of the Tony sachet seasoning. And one more shrimp to go. And that is my beautiful shrimp po' boy. Alright, so Mookie and I are going to do a Cajun shrimp boil. I had my first shrimp boil at my friend Murray's house in Houston, Texas. It was great. It was outside. They just put newspaper on a picnic table and they dumped the whole spread on the picnic table and everyone just picked the shrimp off and ate it. What do you think of that, Mookie? Alright, so very simple. I cut some corn on the cob into coins. I got some real Cajun andouille sausage. It's super hard to find, but if you can find andouille sausage for a Cajun shrimp boil, I highly recommend it. And then just some baby Yukon Golds that I halved. And then of course I got some nice black tiger prawn shrimp with the peel and tail on. And then I also have some Zatarains. It's called Zatarain's crawfish, shrimp, and crab boil. I used it in the Parrot Head episode where I made the Jimmy Buffett type peel and eat shrimp. That was a chilled peel and eat shrimp. This is going to be a hot shrimp boil. And then, so I'm going to boil it. I'm going to boil it. Potatoes first. You put the sausage in any time. It's just going to add flavor to everything. And then I'm going to go with the corn. And I'm going to do the shrimp at the very end. It's even frozen, and it's just going to take no time to cook at all. As soon as it turns pink, it's ready to go. And then I'm just going to hit it with some Tony Chachere's Creole seasoning at the end. Yeah, and again, so this Zatarain, it's just a bag of spices. I'll show you. So that's going to go in the boiling water. I'll read the ingredients. I'm going to go get my glasses to read the ingredients. I have my mother's glasses. Oh, yeah. Okay, ingredients are brown mustard seed, coriander seed, red pepper, dill seed, bay leaf, and allspice. So that, again, that's the spice bag, and it's going to go into my shrimp boil. And we'll see how that goes. Mookie, have you heard there was a Viagra truck robbed? The police are looking for a hardened criminal. All right, well, thanks for joining me on my Nawlins episode, tribute to the city of New Orleans. Special thanks to A.J. Rathbun. He's an accomplished author, and he suggested that I make grenadine from scratch for my hurricane. I just purchased one of his books, so we'll have lots more on him in some upcoming episodes. So this is Mookie, and I'm Chappy. Make sure you give us a subscribe, and if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time on Chappy's Tiki Bar.